Salman, guys. Maybe most of you don't care. It's maybe not one of my typical topics on this channel, but it's something that actually really is very, very sensitive to me, and that is something that is happening in the Middle East, and it's obviously affecting the rest of the world with Palestine and Israel. Today marks the 7th of October 2024. We all know what happened on the 7th of October 2023 when Hamas soldiers crossed over the border into Israel and committed heinous crimes, killing a lot of innocent people and taking on hostages. I think they took 250 hostages, and I think on the day 1,200 people got murdered. Don't quote me too much on all these numbers. It's numbers that I'm also hearing off these YouTube streets. It's numbers that I'm hearing off CNN, Al Jazeera, and we do know that every 2 days they change and amend numbers. I remember initially they had put out that 1,400 people had been murdered on October the 7th, and then they changed from 1,400 to 1,200. And then again, they also changed because they had to break out and split the numbers, and they said about 800 were civilians and like 400 were soldiers or police people. So it's just so crazy, but it's such a sensitive topic because no one's allowed to criticize Israel. No one's allowed to criticize the IDF. No one's allowed to criticize anything to do with a certain type of Jewish person. We're not allowed to criticize because we get cancelled. We get called anti-Semitic or things like that. However, if you want to go onto the internet and, talk shit about black people, you can, as long as you don't say the N-word or the K word, then you can say what you want to say. We can joke about people from Pakistan, India. We can joke and say that Chinese people eat dogs. We can say all these things, but there you say something about Israel, people from Israel, and all of a sudden, you're anti-Semitic. So I was trying to do some research because a lot of people, whenever they speak about the number of deaths and devastation that's happening in Palestine and Gaza and the occupied West Bank, a lot of them want to start at October the 7th, so it's either they start post World War II and they speak about the whole movement. Some will go into the Bible and go back. I just want to really talk about 2023, because people, especially the West, they always start at October 7th, and I always look at it at cause and effect. I can run to the police and say, oh, someone slapped me. The question is, what led them to slap me? Are they right by slapping me? Maybe not. I don't know. That's something that's subjective, or that's something that the police will then take into their own investigations. But I don't think things happen just out of the blue. Even heinous, most disgusting things don't happen out of the blue. So if you want to research the state of Israel as recognized by the United Nations, then you'll have to go into the mid-1900s, what happened post-World War II, etc. If you want to research it from a biblical Christian point, because maybe some of you guys, because you might be Christian or Jewish, and that is now your factual book of reference, then you can do that as well, and then you can look at it from that point. So there's many ways to skin this cat, if we can call it that. But let's go into last year. So what did we know about last year, January? What did we know about Gaza, the Gaza Strip? What did we know about the West Bank? We knew, Guti, it was occupied nations. I know a lot of people would say, oh no, Israel left Gaza Strip in 2005. It was occupied nations in the sense that they were controlled, or they are controlled, from the water supply to electricity to the food. It is controlled. So you can't say that, oh, I don't control my neighbor. My neighbor is just living perfectly. But what you've done is that you've put walls around your neighbor, and you've put soldiers around on those walls. And should your neighbor come close to the walls, you'll shoot and kill them. You can't say that your neighbor is free and is unoccupied when you control the water supply, how much water goes in and out your neighbor's house, how much electricity. At any moment, if you want to switch off electricity at your neighbor's house, you're in control of that. Your neighbor can't, they only have so much airspace they can fly up. So if they fly up too high, you bomb your neighbor's helicopter. You know, if they go into the ocean, the fishermen can only go so far into the ocean before you shoot and kill them. So when you say that you've left the Gaza Strip, yet you occupy everything around, the air, the land, the water around that, and should they veer too far out, you kill them. How do you say those people are free? How? You know, you have people that say, oh, but there's many citizens from Palestinians in Israel, but they don't have the same laws. They don't have the same laws. There's laws that's meant for Israeli residents, born and raised, people who are of Jewish faith, and there's some that don't apply to them. There's places that people who are Muslim, who are born in Palestine, they can't go. It's crazy. When you look at this and you break it down, but the West doesn't report these things. No one speaks about these things. People are just quick to say October the 7th. We can all agree that the murder of innocent people is wrong. All of us can agree on that. And justice should be served. The question is what leads up to that. In this country, we come from an apartheid state where it gave birth to Umkhonto weSizwe. So you had all these liberation movements from your PAC to your ANCs who are very much about peace in order to get to some sort of conclusion. But again, you can only talk so much to people that understand violence. You can only talk so much. Because you now there in 1976 and you there have kids with I'm a poster or whatever saying that they don't want to be told in Afrikaans. They've got nothing. Next thing you shoot and you kill them. What are you saying? You saying you guys can march peacefully, we will kill you. It's happened time and time and time again. Many incidences within Israel and Palestine where people have had peaceful marches and they've been killed. You can research this yourself. Now going back into last year, 2023, I was actually looking. And again, you have to go to the ass crack of the internet to kind of find these numbers. That's why you can't really confirm or deny these numbers. The same way that all these so-called big CNN, Al Jazeera, BBC, Fox, they wishy-washy as well. They say one thing one day and another thing another day. But it was saying, so interesting, Guti, there was within the West Bank and the Gaza Strip over 600 deaths by the IDF to civilians. Just that year alone, just building up to that year, before the 7th of October, Guti, over 600 civilians were killed by the soldiers. Over 600. I was like, that's crazy. So now let's just take that year and let's look at cause and effect. If we started at October the 7th and we say 800 civilians got killed, 250 got kidnapped, and as a result, 40,000 civilians have to now get killed because of that. Let's just say, can we also justify using the same principle that because of the 600 people that were murdered, building up to October the 7th is justified? Again, I think killing any innocent civilian is disgusting. But if we're going to use October the 7th as a justification for over 100,000 people being injured, 40,000 people being murdered, 10,000 people or plus gone missing. If we're going to use the 7th of October as justification, surely we should be able to use everything leading up to the 7th of October as justification. With the same principle? Surely. I'm disgusted so much about where the world is going. I normally talk about how disgusted I am about the South African setting, the relationships, how bad men are treating women, how bad women are treating men. But you look at it, and the so-called civilized world, the West, the ones that they're going around killing thousands and thousands and tens of thousands. And again, they're like, okay, well, you killed 800 of our civilians, we'll kill 40,000 of yours. Like, imagine how crazy it is. Like, it's not even, like, if you break down, I actually wrote down these numbers with the first 6 days. So the stats are based on the first 6 days post October 7th. So within that, 15 people were murdered every day. 6 being kids. 15. Every hour. These are the stats about every single hour. This is based on the first 6 days. You can Google this shit if you want. Every hour, 15 people were killed. Every hour, 6 being kids. 42 bombs dropped. 35 injured. That's crazy. This is from Al Jazeera, by the way, just in case you want to go dig around. Since then, if you look at the past year, just this past year, in what Israel has done at the Gaza Strip, they have destroyed over 60% of all residential homes. Over 60%. Think about that, guys. Not 60% is. They've destroyed over 80% of commercial buildings. Over 80%. They've destroyed 70% of croplands or farm. So now you guys can't fucking farm nothing. You have to rely. 50% of hospitals, 70% of roads, 90% of schools. Oh, we want to destroy Hamas. Okay. If they say, based on them, they say they have a 2-to-1 ratio. That's what they say, 2-to-1. So for every 2 civilians, 1 Hamas soldier dies. Meaning, if they've killed 40,000 civilians, 20,000 are Hamas. How many Hamas soldiers are there? That number is unknown. Because Hamas is an ideology. Hamas is an ideology, whether you agree with it or not. Whether you agree with that ideology or not, it's an ideology. So how many Hamas soldiers are there? Let's just say there's 100,000 Hamas soldiers. If it's still a 2-to-1 ratio, that means that they're going to go kill 200,000 people in order to get rid of this Hamas. And the world is just sitting. I don't know. It just doesn't sit well. And it doesn't sit well at the fact that one person being killed in Israel is worth 100 in any other space. And the reason why I'm saying what I'm saying is, is because whenever there's an isolated death, as tragic as it is in Israel, that news spreads like wildfire. If you look at right now what's happening between Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon and Israel, if there's one death in Israel, it's on every single Western platform. And there only has to be like 1,000. Then only in Lebanon or in Iran do they report it. So it makes me believe, sitting here in South Africa, would say, hey, you know what? So whenever this one, it's just a bigger news as this 1,000. The whole focus on the 800 citizens or civilians that have died is almost equivalent to the 42,000 that have been murdered on the other side. They look at it like that. Bear in mind, Guti, there's still people that have been killed in the occupied West Bank, where was said that there's no Hamas. Bear in mind that there's 6,000 injured. Bear in mind, Guti, the occupied West Bank is still getting occupied to this day. We are sitting with a population of 600,000 in 2017 in Gaza. 2017. So the question is, Guti, how many people, percentage-wise, do they have to kill? Do they have to kill everybody in that space? Because then once everybody's killed, then the assumption that Hamas is all now dead. That would be my assumption. So is that what's going to happen? Is the world going to sit back? If you look at the United Nations, how many countries are in the United Nations? How many countries in the UN voted for ceasefire? Because this is actually crazy. Because it also shows, Wuti, the UN is also just a bullshit propaganda machine. It just tells you how much of a bullshit propaganda machine. Because I remember looking at when they were speaking about the UN Security Council, which is also fucked up because the UN Security Council only has 40 nations, I think, of which there's no African nation. You meant to represent all the nations of the world, and you've got the UN greater and then your UN security, and not a single African country is there. Okay, tells us how important we are. And then all of them say, no, let's have a ceasefire except for America. And then America says no, and nothing happens, no ceasefire. It's crazy. Like, imagine you say you live in a democratic world, and America loves talking about how democratic they are. They love talking about how democratic they are. Then they say, okay, let's vote. 14 people vote. Of the 14, 10 say yes, ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire. 10 says ceasefire. 13 say, hey, we abstain, we don't want to vote. 1 says no. And because at 1, nothing happens. Then you tell us that you're democratic. We the free world where everybody has a voice and everybody's democratic and it's about voting. Really? If it was about voting, then you guys would have voted to a ceasefire happen a long time ago. A long time ago. Early in October it would have been a ceasefire. Anyway, guys, it feels like I'm just gonna go, and as I'm talking I'm getting more and more emotional. And I might say things again to get myself cancelled, to get myself in real trouble, because as I said, there's certain people that we're not allowed to criticize. We can criticize Cyril Ramaphosa, no one will have a problem with that. We can criticize Jacob Zuma, no one will have a problem with that. We can talk about every single atrocity in the world, including the DRC, including, no one will have a problem with that. We speak about Israel, we speak about Palestine, we then get cancelled. It's crazy. It's crazy. And again, I'll stand on what I was saying. I don't think any single innocent anyone should ever get killed. And the people that do that, regardless of whoever they are, should be prosecuted. But it's crazy how we justify when it suits our narrative. But yeah, on this day, 7th of October, I just want to put out my prayers and my wishes for peace in South Africa, peace in my community, peace in Africa, definitely peace in Africa, and in peace in the Middle East. There's kids that are dying every day. I'm a father of 3 boys. I can just imagine if we were in a similar space and they had no school, no home to go to, living in tents, no water, nothing to eat. It's absolutely disgusting. But anyway, let's see where the world goes with this. And again, peace to everyone. I'm not siding in terms of innocent civilians. When it comes to innocent civilians, I'm saying peace to every last one. But I do hope that there is a ceasefire. I hope what's happening with the greater Middle East actually stops very quickly and the world comes to its senses, because history will remember. History will remember our silences. History will remember the sides we take. History will remember you laughing, you doing this. History will remember, and you might not get punished by a legal entity, you might not be held accountable by people that exist, but you might be held liable by a higher being, whatever you believe in. So let's just make sure we believe in love and peace for all. Anyway, guys, please let me know what you think about this topic. I know it's very sensitive and people don't want to engage in it. I get it, it's very different from what I normally talk about, but let me know. Share this video if you think there's any talking points that we can unpack with other people, start conversations in your workspace, at home, with your family, with your friends. Hit that subscription button or subscribe button, whatever the case may be, notification bell, and have yourselves a fantastic day. Sharp, guys. Yantanda.